Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we were playing as the Vampire Counts against the Forces of the Empire on the map Chill Flow. And for this match we do have a bit of a fun composition because I wanted to try out something a little different. I wanted to try something a little bit ridiculous, and it is a mass monster build. Obviously, triple Vargul for seeing some bats, that isn't exactly the rarest thing ever, but one of the things I really did want to try out was Vargeists in mass, and I wanted to see how well they'd perform. And against Empire, I figured, might be a decent chance of getting some good value. So, bringing the build down here. Most of our build is up in the sky, or at least about half of it is. For my lord, I'd bring a Lahmian Vampire. Perhaps Karstein, perhaps Isabella would have been a little more thematic here, but the Lahmian Lord, I figured, would be a lot of fun. You can see, just look at that. Look at her. She's got like it's like pink and blue. It's such a weird combination of colors. But regardless, she does have a lot of cool abilities. She's got Invocation of an Egg, Raise Dead, and Enfeebling Foe, which I figured would be really useful. She also does have Lightning Reflexes and Seduction, which is a cool AoE melee attack debuff. I figured pretty useful if I do need to fight, for example, a bunch of Demigryphs. Another cool thing is she gets physical resistance, which is not normal for Vampire Counts. And for Vampire Count Lords, so you do have some extra tankiness there provided by that, and otherwise, decent melee combatant like all the standard Vampire Lords on a Hellsteed, really mobile. Otherwise, it's a bunch of flyers. 3 units of bats over here, 2 units of Vargeists, and in the very back we do have the Devils of Schwarzhofen camping out in the backline, ready to deploy and hopefully jump on my opponent's backline. Elsewhere, 5 units of zombies, one which is the Tithe, making up my only infantry line, figuring that these guys can anchor and hold well enough for my purposes. Over on the flank, we do have 3 units of Vargulfs, as well as the Dire Pack, who make up a bit of a goon squad. I figured if my opponent brings something like Empire Knights or Reichsguard or Demigryphs, we're going to be able to goon them out and just mob them with Vargeists and Lahmian Lord and all that stuff. Now, in the meantime, the Luminarch, which my opponent decided to bring here, definitely going very try-hard here on the sniping. So my opponent did bring the Luminarch, is already taking pot shots at my Vargulfs, which is really rather annoying. Looking at the rest of my opponent's build, definitely meant to be maximum pain and annoyance for me. For his lord, he did decide to bring Balthasar Gelt, who is here on foot. Now, there's a lot of magic in this build, which I think is a little odd, but for Balthasar Gelt here, he does have Plague of Frost, he's got Glittering Robe, Arcane Conduit, and Staff of Valon, so he's acting as a bit of a battery with a secondary function of cheap spell spam. Alongside him, we do have a wizard, a celestial wizard, providing Curse of the Midnight Wind, which debuffs armor and melee attack, making these swordsmen, for example, much more effective against something like Graveguard. And he does also have the Roiling Skies, which potentially helps protect the Luminarch if I try to dive it with all of my flyers. For the rest of his army, it is a whole bunch of Pistoliers, 4 units of them, 2 Empire Knights, a whole bunch of Spearmen in the front line, backed by Swordsmen, Crossbowmen, and a single unit of Greatswords here in the center, and of course the Temple of Luminarch. So with that and the Light Wizard over here, my opponent has a lot of net power potentially, and that is a huge nuisance. Now, unfortunately, my bats here are going to start getting focused by the Pistoliers. There's not much I can do about that. Pistoliers are just such a pain in the rear, guys. Vampire Counts don't have very good tools to deal with Pistoliers at all. They've got 90 speed, which, with the way, and you can see here what the Fellbats are doing, they like dive in like a bunch of morons, and they're like following at ground level. So instead of like flying over the Pistoliers and then diving down on top of them, they try to pursue them on the ground level. It's just really bad, and this is one of the things I really don't like about Fellbats. But we are able to zone out these Pistoliers, which is really useful. In the meantime, our Vargulfs are pushing through, trying to get an opening and dive into my opponent's troops here. Meantime, zombies pushing forward, Devils of Schwarzhofen closing in from behind, and all in all, we're just applying a lot of pressure. You can see the Pistoliers here being forced to flee. The Empire Knights there do actually lose a model, or a few models perhaps, but unfortunately these Vargulfs over here do get distracted by the Spearmen and kind of done screw up. That said, we do remove these knights from play. In the meantime, you can see Dire Pack getting on top of the Luminarch. My opponent, though, counteracts with a net, which, of course, incredibly annoying, but we are able to counter that with Fellbats. And the Fellbats, they're going to be pursuing the Luminarch, but once again, at ground level, which is just so crappy. I really don't like that about the bats. They're the manner in which they engage. It's actually true for most little flyers, but I feel like it's really obvious with the bats. In the meantime, my opponent is just pounding my Vargeists. You can see the Devils getting shredded by the Pistoliers. The Templar here actually just sitting tight and firing into this, like just ignoring the bats, wailing on it, but it does whiff there on the Vargulfs, as we do focus out the Light Wizard here very aggressively, diving in with the Dire Pack, and this is just some brutal stuff. We are able to goon out this Light Wizard very effectively. You can see the Lahmian Lord is in there, just shanking the poor guy, and despite his Power Stone, he is going to get forced to die. Oh, unfortunately, the Devils of Schwarzhofen do get shredded a bit, but, the Greatswords did get pounded, and we are able to remove these crossbows from the field. And that's pretty important. The crossbows are obviously a huge threat. They can do a lot of damage, and we can't catch the Pistoliers, so what can you do? A zombie summon here does come down. Unfortunately, the Luminarch there does a lot of hurt, and it just keeps running away, and I'm really not able to just catch it. I'm trying to shut it down desperately here, committing unit after unit, just trying to get on top of it, and it's just not happening, guys. So a bit of a brutal situation. The devils there do actually die, leaving just these 2 Vargeist still around kicking. But, you know, Vargeist is a pretty nasty unit. They can do a lot of hurt to squishy infantry, and they're on the hunt here for these crossbows. Unfortunately, the Pistoliers are really ruining their day. Over here, this was something really annoying for me. Lahmian Lord here getting in on the Luminarch, slapping it around in melee. She was on top of it and fighting. And despite the fact that she's fighting, despite the fact that we got seduction on it, it actually got a shot off on the Vargulf, which I think is kind of ridiculous. We literally had it under attack, and it got to shoot. But, oh well, what can you do? It is now firing away again, clocking both Vargulfs at once, doing a lot of damage. The Empire Knights there coming in as well, being a nuisance. Fortunately, we did get seduction off, so we were kind of tying it down a little bit. But now with Plague of Rust on us, we are getting pounded a bit by these knights. Fortunately for Barfazar, though, he is having a really rough time. The Vargeist, of course, just butchering him. That was a little bit of a lag spike there, but Invocation of the Neck going down, and Barfazar being shredded and forced to flee from the field once again. In the meantime, we are desperately trying to get on the Templehof Luminarch, which, of course, true to form, is moving and shooting. Like, the Templehof Luminarch, I think, and Luminarchs in general, are one of those buggy units, I think. With the way they fire, they're able to fire a lot of times when they're tied up in melee. They're able to fire on the move sometimes because of the delayed animation, I think. And so that's just a little bit frustrating, to be quite honest with you guys, as we're trying to desperately shut it down here because it's such a pain in the posterior. But now our Vargulfs, you can see whomping on it. It's really, really starting to hurt. But, you know, my opponent, he is using his Pistoliers here in a bit of a desperate stalling maneuver to tie me down. And he does actually net down the Vargulf with the net on the Templehof, preventing me from getting through. That said, the Vargeist, they are on point, and they're going to be able to dive down and start pounding Luminarch. But once again, it's being unattacked, and it fires point blank. Kills some of its knights, probably, but got a shot off, which is a little nuts. But as it does try to flee, it is getting pounded on. Its leadership is finally going to start breaking. And although we are losing some of our Vargeist there, we are able to remove the Templehof Luminarch from play, force it away, despite Glittering Robe being popped. And it is routing. In the meantime, elsewhere, the zombies actually kind of not working. They are tying down swordsmen, but not exactly being cost effective. That was a little unfortunate, but our Vargulfs are able to extricate themselves as we do get another summon of zombies on the field. The Templehof Luminarch does actually pull away. 600 HP left, no heals though, so that's good for me. And I am able to pull my monster squad over to this flank against the swordsmen and tear out them from the field. And you can see the Vargeist doing some major work here, just slapping these guys around. Vargeists are a pretty nasty unit. I do really think they're potentially, when they actually are doing work, they're a good unit. It's just that when they're getting shot to death, they are trash. But in the meantime, my opponent here running away with the Templehof Luminarch, being pursued by a very angry Lahmian Lord who isn't really able to catch him. The Empire Knights and Balthazar once again committing to prevent her from getting in there. Just so annoying. But now the Luminarch winding up and once again going for that kill shot on the Vargulf, missing completely. That's one of those unfortunate things with the Luminarch, is that it's got bit iffy sort of accuracy. And the Vargulf does rally here, pushing through. My opponent trying to stop me with crossbows, but they do not have the mass, and the Vargulf is going to get in there and finally slap this Luminarch around a little bit, putting it in its place and forcing it to rout. And we are trying to catch it. I had no intention of letting it escape. Unfortunately, these guys getting distracted by like a lone crossbowman there, which is just ridiculous. But the Luminarch there forced to rout. We did actually snipe Balthazar here because the Lahmian Lord took him down when he tried to slow her down, and suddenly my opponent, you know, in a bit of a grim spot. The Luminarch being forced to run by the very angry Vargulfs, who are being snared and annoyed by these swordsmen. So, oh well, what can you do? The Vargeist still farming some kills, and here in the pits, the zombies just tying down these blobs as the Lahmian Lord soars through the skies, moving to shut down these troops. And of course, my opponent pounding her with Pistoliers, but as the Pistoliers start running out of ammo, they are going to struggle a lot against the Lahmian Lord with her 80 armor, 20% physical resist. She's just too tough of a target. She still has a lot of way to go before she's hit her healing cap. Elsewhere, and of course, there are still our Vargulfs over here, and you can see we do shatter and remove this Templehof from play. At this point, my opponent does decide to GG out of the match, and that is going to be game in favor of the Vampire Counts. And as you can see, things came. I lost most of my army. So obviously, my build was a bit gimmicky, and honestly, this isn't. If you're looking for a competitive build, this is not what I would recommend. It was fun. It was a monster sort of themed build, and I thought it was humorous to just run around with a horde of Vargulfs and Vargeists. But obviously, if you're looking for something competitive, the Vargeists are so squishy. Like, you'd be better off bringing like a few more bats and some Graveyard, honestly. The Vargulf's honestly a strong pick. Their triple Vargulf is just a brutal comp. It's honestly a bit gimmicky, and it's a bit of a scumbag build you can run with perfect viability. Definitely they did a great job here, able to shut down the Knights, just tear through the infantry lines, hopping around like a mad, tear through that Luminarch. The zombies, you know, they bogged down some state troops. Not much to say there. The Dire Pack got torn apart. The Lahmian Lord did some good work. She was definitely pretty tanky. Definitely was getting some decent healing in there. Was able to debuff my opponent with her various buffs and debuffs. So a lot of fun with her. For my opponent, obviously his whole build, his whole gimmick was the Luminarch. Now kill count's a bit of fake news there, I think, because they were fighting zombies for the most part. You're gonna get impressive kill counts against zombies, but it doesn't really mean very much. When your greatswords kill 111 zombies, it means almost nothing. The bigger problem there was that my opponent's shooting tore up my Vargeists and my Velbats and even the Vargulfs to an extent. And the Knights actually did some good work against the Dire Pack and the Vargulfs, bogging them down and being a nuisance. And of course the Luminarch just almost annihilated the Vargulf, got a few kills on the Devils, just doing some monstrous work there. And I do think the Temple of the Luminarch in general, I think, has some issues with like not balancing. I think the unit's fair, to be honest, but it does have some of these weird bugs where like it'll be engaged in melee and it still gets to shoot on guard mode. Whereas normally, if a unit's engaged in melee, even if it's on guard mode, it doesn't get to shoot. Like for example, if you're fighting against like if you're attacking like a Waystalker in melee, he's not going to get to shoot. Even if he's on like guard mode. So I don't know why the Luminarch gets to shoot. Plus I don't get why the Luminarch sometimes fires on the move, which is really odd, and they'll like fire at a backwards angle. I think it's because of the long windup animation. But oh well, what can you do? If I had a critique of my opponent's build here, if you are trying to do these sort of gimmicky builds with the Luminarch, which is viable, and it honestly isn't terrible against vampires, I do think you want to bring a more fighty lord than Balthazar. Just bring the one light wizard for the nets and perhaps frost protection. If you're going more expensive, you can bring like an earth life wizard instead to heal like a bunch of cavalry if you go with some more elite cav, and then bring like a fighty lord, bring like Karl Franz on a horse, because they'll do you much better against like the Vargulfs and the Lahmian Lord than Balthazar will. But regardless, good game to my opponent. Was a bit of a fun matchup. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, as usual, don't hesitate to post them, and I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.